Morning. You let me know when we're good to go. Okay. Well, I will call this meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Park Commissioners together. It's October the 20th, beautiful, sunny, crisp morning in Eden Park in Cincinnati. And I want to thank all of those of you that are here to participate in our meeting. We are going to do a little bit of a change in
Absolutely. So we're joined today by Pete Matz, who's the communities talk about today, and then also Tim Sharp of ACF, who is helping with the design work on this grant proposal. So
super. Pete, we'll turn over to you, and T, if you could, right here, I'll do it myself. You could pass that over there, Brad. Just put it closer.
Passage. We believe there's an opportunity now where there hasn't been an opportunity before to bring real federal dollars to a project like that. And so our endeavor at the chamber, knowing that there had been private investment in this project 20 years ago to make it possible, was to take this from something that was always dreamed of, what might we do there, to how do we get something done there? And that's really this first phase of our effort, was to envision it, to test some scenarios, the partners at KZF and WSP who really leaned into this with us, to be able to present something to those of you who actually have the opportunity to deliver a project, the city, the county, parks departments, transportation departments, to be able to deliver something that we could all rally around as a community, to start asking the litany of questions it would take to build something there, and ultimately to be able to start applying for federal grants to bring in a significant chunk of resources. So Tim is going to walk through some of what you've probably seen in the paper and what I know that Jason has shared with you as board members, but we wanted to come to you now at the front end of this process because we know that this is a long, complicated process, and the value of the partnership between the public agencies who will need to be involved in this, the private sector who has raised money for this in the past and we would expect would invest in something like this in the future, is really important to start now and not once we get a planning grant, once we're down the line. And so just as a status update, the city of Cincinnati, through the Department of Transportation and Engineering, applied for a planning grant through the Reconnecting Communities program. That program is specifically designed to build on top of highways and repair the damage that highways have done to cut through our communities. There are probably not many projects in the country that made that investment 20 years ago to enable us to use those dollars. So that was a $2 million planning grant. A huge chunk of those dollars will be used for the engineering efforts to figure out how you build the physical structure, but also to do community engagement and planning around what could go on top of it, which we've envisioned as a flexible green space that is really an asset that our region doesn't have today in terms of scale. So I'll hand it off to Tim. I imagine that if we're successful and when we're successful in getting this grant, there will be so many more conversations about how do we get something done. And we're eager to have those with all of you and with counterparts of the city and the county as well. So Tim, I'll hand it off to you.
So good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So it's so funny because you're going to run. Perfect. People call it the decks over Fort Washington Way. Some people call it the lids, all this stuff, right? So, but the one thing that was always the common was, could we not make it a highway, make it a place? That was really the theme behind this today. So let's talk a little bit about the existing conditions, if we can move it there. So as we all know, a long time ago, in 2000, we shrank this highway in half We had a Second Street and a Third Street connector. Those are the city streets, so to speak. We had the 5 bridges across the main line and so forth. As much as we shrank it, we were able to build things like Freedom Center and some banks development, things like that. It still feels like a highway a little bit. In fact, a lot of the businesses along Third Street almost see it as almost a back door. It almost feels like the back of the buildings. If we can go. As you can see, there's this trench of the I-71 main line that kind of runs underneath all the buildings. This is the area that we're talking about. How do we transform this from a highway feel to really a place that could be a connector between the core, downtown core, and the banks? As much as we've tried, we've got elegant looking vandal screening, fencing, and beautiful planters that I know everybody's been involved with. As much as we tried to make this less a highway, it still feels like a highway. If we can keep going, please. So as you can see, we use it for a lot of things, right? There's the everyday traffic that comes in and out on 2nd and 3rd Street, but sometimes we close it down and have festivals, just like we did a few weeks ago at Oktoberfest. But as you can see, we fill the place. We fill the place with festivals and activity and things like that. But the problem we've got is if we want to close the streets and there's other activities downtown that weekend, let's say there's a Reds game or something like that, we can't really close the streets. So one of the things that we started thinking about, well, is there a place that we can all gather, one place in this city? So if we keep going, please. So back in 2000, the Riverfront Advisors came up with this great vision of what the banks could be and so forth. That includes the 2 stadiums, right? And the Freedom Center as the focal point. But they always envisioned the decking over Fort Washington Way as being an open space, a green space, a connector, so to speak, between the core and the banks. But also, if you look to the north of 3rd Street, they envisioned economic development. They saw buildings potentially be built fronting this space and so forth. So if we keep going, please. So we did some quick benchmarking, just so you get an idea about size and scale. The orange rectangle that you see there, that's the area that we would be decking over the highway. That's the big long rectangle that's orange. But I wanted to give you some scale comparison. So the red box is the entire Washington Park. The blue oval is the kind of the flat open event space at Washington Park, just to give you an idea. So that big oval at Washington Park is only 1/4 of what this opportunity could be. We keep going, please. This is Summit Park right up the road in Blue Ash. It's big space where they had great opera events and things like that during the pandemic. That blue oval is their big grand lawn, right? As you can see, it's about half of what the opportunity that we might have here, checking over the orange part of Fort Washington. Please. We also look kind of nationally, the National Mall, right? Everybody knows the National Mall. So the red lines represent the entire width of the National Mall. The blue rectangles are kind of each one of those flat blocks, the multi-purpose blocks of the National Mall. And so you can see we could get potentially 3 of those National Mall blocks on our decks over Fort Washington Way. We go, please. So you can see 3 of those. Think of 3 of those as we look forward ahead, just from a scale standpoint. If we can keep moving. So out in Denver, there's a decking over project that's under construction right now. It's roughly the rectangle of red that you see there. They were trying to connect 2 neighborhoods. And so they were envisioning it as, if we can keep going, please, green space, park space, recreational type facilities, and even some buildings and so forth. They were trying to knit together the 2 neighborhoods. That was what their philosophy was. So this project was designed by WSP. It was part of this design effort that we're doing. But they figured out how to deal with the tunnel effects in this project. So if we go to the next slide, please. The philosophy is instead of bringing the ventilation up through the park, they actually take it to both ends and kind of exhaust it. So in other words, if there's an accident that happens in that tunnel and there's smoke and so forth, from an emergency standpoint, they ventilate it out the ends with these jet fans. So this is a construction photo and so forth. It's possible. It's a federal funded project and so forth. So it's an example for us of how we might treat the engineering solution. So we looked at a number of concepts, including could we build buildings in this area? Of course, it's designed for either a park space or up to 4-story buildings. But we just weren't getting the mass, so to speak, when we looked at the economic development standpoint. So we began to think about, could this be a flexible space? Could it be an open space that could be used for a lot of different things? On a daily, from a daily standpoint, you could have yoga in the morning. You could have a celebration of events. Let's say there's a World Series victory or a Super Bowl win. You could have a celebration event in this area. Everybody could come. Could it be a festival place like Oktoberfest? Could it be things that you could use it in a very flexible, multi-purpose way so that we don't limit who comes, they just come. And so that was our first thought, was a very flexible open space. If you could go, please. So here's the initial concept. So you can see 3rd Street and 2nd Street there. The two middle blocks flanking Vine Street would be kind of open green space, so to speak. The two ends are really could be plaza-like. And so the idea being, we're eliminating this vandal screening, right? The fencing that we see there, and we're pushing it all the way out to the ends, almost to Main Street and to Elm. And so this middle 4 blocks is park, all connected. It's no longer highway-like. And so from our philosophy, if we can make this very much a flexible space, if we can begin to think about this as a place where we can all gather, that's an opportunity. So we looked at Vine Street, it kind of comes through the middle, if we can go. And so we thought about, do you eliminate Vine Street, if you can go again, or do we do a partial of Vine Street? Sometimes we use it, sometimes we use it for cars, sometimes we use it for festivals, things like that. So we kind of are studying at this point. We can keep moving, please. So as you can see, there's economic development opportunities because we're creating basically frontage, if you think of it that way. No longer highway frontage, but open space, green space frontage. So you can see the orange buildings there. Those are opportunities for economic development that could be fronting this space. And so this place, if you want to call it that. So a huge economic development asset. You could use it for temporary, you could get the big Oktoberfest tents here, right? You could do some large events here on this space because it's open, it's flexible, it's multi-purpose. So from our perspective, it's really the connector. It's a place now. It connects the downtown core with the banks. It's no longer highway-like, right? It's 4 blocks of open space that really can connect. 2nd and 3rd Street become more boulevard-like. The middle section become, obviously pedestrian oriented. So from a valley view standpoint, no longer that trench that we saw in the very beginning of this conversation. We could have festivals, right? Oktoberfest, large fence. We could do, if you go ahead, please. At the ends, we could do stage type events. If it was a celebration of a victory, or if it was a NFL draft, or it could be any things like that. So lots of opportunity there at the ends of both the space. So from our perspective, is it gonna run? Try again. We did have a fly through. That's all right. I'm sorry. So we'll send it to you, but there is a fly through that shows you this concept of how it looks. And I think we should probably send it to everybody. Yeah, that'd be great. It's a great opportunity for us. It's a very great visual of how it could actually connect the core with the banks area. So from our perspective, it's a great place at this point. It's becoming a place. And so from our perspective, it becomes a green space opportunity. So if we can keep going, please. So from let's look at economic development as well as park development. It's roughly about a 5.5 acre park, if you think of it that way, just from a square footage standpoint. But it has opportunity, 2.6 million square feet of opportunity of economic development around it. And so if you think about like the Central Park in New York and how everybody fronts it, so to speak, it could be similar to that kind of approach. So from our perspective, it's kind of an opportunity for economic development, but also a green space opportunity. We did do some preliminary estimating, and we used existing projects because times like these with the construction market. So that bridge out in Denver, we used that as a model because it was recently built and so forth. So from a bridging standpoint, we use those numbers. The Lido Park tunnel was recently upgraded with this life safety issues and so forth. So we use those as recently bid numbers. And then also the 2 areas down in the riverfront that were recently bid We use those as numbers and so forth to give us an idea about what costs could be potentially. And that allowed us to kind of begin to think about what the ask could be with the federal government and the infrastructure bill. So from that perspective, from our standpoint, we think it's a great connector. As long as we think of it as a multi-purpose kind of open space, it gives us the flexibility to do lots of things. And so that was kind of the philosophy in this initial concepts. So at this point, I'll take questions. We'll take questions.
Well, I think, I mean, you know, I think this is amazing, and I'm all in on anything I can do to help support this vision from a lot of perspectives. Third Street is downtown's front door, and the condition it's in, it's not where it should be. And I think that this is a plan that's been conceptualized for a very long time. And it's really exciting that it's back here. And I would just commend the chamber and you specifically, Pete, on really pushing and bringing leadership to things that Cincinnati's been trying to get done for a long time. A couple of questions. You talked about the federal grant. Just give us a framework on what it's going to take to bring this concept to reality. And we need the funding. Does that all come from the feds? Where's this all coming from? What do you need?
Yeah, so what we've applied for today is a planning grant. There are also construction grants from the federal government. The Reconnected Communities program that we applied for has a planning function and a construction function. There are also many other construction grant opportunities at the federal government. So we're sort of assessing what those other buckets of funds are. Generally speaking, for projects that get federal dollars, it's an 80% federal to local match. Some of those things you'd have to figure out what's eligible for each bucket. So, I think that we'd be shooting for 80% of as much of this $110 million as possible, understanding that some things are eligible for some funds, other things are eligible for others. So we're thinking that there's a real significant federal share. Then I think there's opportunities on state capital potentially side, thinking through private investments as part of local match are all things we've already started considering.
How would you envision Parks involvement in this project?
Yeah, great question. So I think what we try to do is take this to all of the opportunities to make this possible, both city and county. I have had an opportunity to look really close at hand at how the city and county work together on the Western Hills Viaduct. It's owned by one and maintained by the other. They have worked seamlessly. A lot of questions of who builds this, who owns it. The state of Ohio owns the air rights to it. And one of the things I'm really proud of so far is every agency we've met with, talked with Jason, we've talked with the folks at Great Parks, we talked to the city, we talked to the county. Everyone has said, let's be at the table, let's start answering those questions. And so I don't have an answer to whose this is and who owns it and who operates. Like that's all stuff that we need to start figuring out. But I think the first step right now is to have parks at the table at the beginning of this process so we can start answering those questions in the best way that works for everything you're doing as a parks department and works for getting something like this transformational done. So I would hope that as we move forward, when we get a grant, as we start planning, we can start answering some of those questions in more detail. But right now let's put that table together, have parks at that table from the beginning along with all the other city departments and start figuring that out. Does that answer your, I know it's a little vague, but does that answer your question? We're still very early.
We don't have the answer yet.
Yeah, we don't, but the key is talking to everyone now so we can start this figuring out.
That makes sense.
That's great.
Yeah.
Susan.
I don't quite, in the paper,
Yeah.
it looked like it connected to the Freedom Center.
It
There was
does.
a direct walkway to the Freedom Center. I'm not quite seeing that connection here. How does it connect to
Okay.
therefore connect to
Yeah.
Smelter Park, et cetera?
So-
Is that green right there?
Yes. So this is the new decking. Here's the Freedom Center itself.
Right.
And there is vision to kind of bring connectivity all the way to Freedom Land.
Is that a green situation just to the left coming down? Do you see what I'm saying? Or is that a road? What is that?
Oh, right there, that's the road. That is Vine Street.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
This really does create both a front door and a back door for the Freedom Center, and that front door facing Second Street is I think a meaningful change for them because everything they've done has faced the river because there's been no reason to face the downtown core.
Yeah.
But this creates an opportunity for them to envision how to use the I guess that's the front of the building. I don't know which side of the building is the other side of the building.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think it's great that there was foresight enough 20-some years ago to be able to incorporate the opportunity to do something like this down the road. So it's great that we're putting it to pen to paper and looking at how we can complete a project like this. So appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you.
That was my comment too, that just to applaud those people who had the vision to think about creating this possibility, because had they not, this wouldn't even be possible. You talk about all the people who you are inviting to the table.
Yeah.
As you had conversations, are there any naysayers? Because it sounds like such a great idea.
Yeah.
What is the downside, or what are people saying might have negative opinions?
It's a great question, and I don't think I have yet talked to anyone who says they don't love the vision. I think they have questions about how do we prioritize and make sure we're spending our dollars in the right place to have the biggest economic impact. And so I think that's where the federal grant gives us this huge opportunity. This has long been an academic exercise for folks over the last 20 years to say, what can we do here? The fact that we could potentially go get 80% of the money to do this makes this a real conversation. And so what we've tried to do is make sure folks understand that there are different buckets of federal funds. And so this is not competing with the Brent Spence Bridge or competing with the bus rapid transit plan that SORTA is going to build, or even the Crown Bike Trail. So like there is money for all these different types of programs. And so we're trying to pinpoint this into a bucket that fits for this, as opposed to saying, well, it's either this or the viaduct, or it's this or that. I mean, that's not where this is headed. And that bill really is what makes that possible. But if we don't get that grant, then we'll have to, as a community, have a conversation about how do we prioritize what we want to prioritize to make it possible. I'm bullish that we do get the grant and then be able to compete successfully, but we want to be able to be in a place to go grab those things, as opposed to saying.
Can you tell us what the timeline is for that grant?
Yeah, the planning grant, we would expect, so it was submitted last week. We would expect probably sometime in the spring to find out if we got the planning grant. It's a 5-year bill, so there will be 4 more years of opportunity to apply for construction grants after we are able to achieve the planning work.
I think your point about not competing priorities is going to be an important one to keep in the forefront and have people know that, because if you're talking about this kind of money, people are going to be talking about, well, we could be doing this or we could be doing that. So to make sure that people understand that it's not competing necessarily against other priorities.
Yeah.
The really far out question for me is, if everything goes right, and we know everything never goes.
Everything's gone right so far.
Everything goes near right. When might we see this?
In our lifetime?
I wish I had a straight answer for you, but I'm going to do a little tap dancing, in part because the value of doing this now is that we're also, because of this infrastructure bill, likely to be able to move the Brent Spence Bridge project forward. And the reality is, I'm not an engineer. Our friend WSP who did this work can go into much more detail on this. At some point when we're building the bridge, Fort Washington Way will actually have to be closed down and traffic diverted elsewhere because all those ramps will change. That's the perfect time to stick a crane down there and build something like this, because otherwise you have to do that twice. And I don't want to screw up traffic downtown twice. I want to get the maximum impact for screwing it up once. And so that's the time to do it. The question is, how do you sync that up with the construction schedule? So I wish I could say like, oh, it's a 2-year project or it's a this, but some of it will be contingent on getting it ready to go when ODOT's ready to go on the bridge. So
Awesome.
So you have any sense of how long actually it would be shut down?
That's an ODOT question, and I think that depends on, they will have a traffic management plan for the whole time. So whether that's traffic diverting to 471 or elsewhere, I don't know for bridge construction how long that will be shut down. I don't know that they know that at this point. I was told, just sort of at a very high level, something like this would be, sort of well, the whole thing start to finish 2 years, and that includes some of the planning efforts. But I don't know how much of that is construction of
Putting the lid
on, and how much of that is park. I just don't know the detail there.
Super. Well, Pete, we look forward to hearing more about this. It's
Celebrate a
exciting.
grant award in the spring.
Actually appreciate, as Molly said, your leadership on this. It's great, and KZF with your work. So Tim, Pete, thank you very much for coming and joining. The time to come. Okay, we're going to move back to our agenda. We do have 2 people who have signed up for public comments. Bill, you're waiting patiently. I know I'm lying. We have Bill Collins, that is joining us. Bill, welcome. How's life on the East Coast? Good to see you again. And we've got 2 minutes for you if you'd like to tell us what you have to talk about.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning. I'm here to speak about this week's completion of the Bramble Park Stream Restoration Project along Little Duck Creek in Madisonville. It was funded by $17,000 from Duke Energy to pay Caroline Duffy, the contract engineer working for Madisonville's MCUR Community Development Corporation, who prepared the successful grant application to ODNR. Also $25,000 from the Hale Foundation, $5,000 from Oliver, $13,000 from the Parks Foundation, about $129,000 from ODNR. We've been working on this project since early 2018. It was jump-started with the critical help of the Hamilton County Conservation District, thanks to Holly Utrata-Halcomb, Adam Lehman, and John Mangan. John had previously been my boss at Syncom Systems when he learned from me that back then during the 2014 to 2016 period that our community group in Madisonville had been frustrated in our dealings with the park board and CRC leadership. Whenever we asked about capital improvements, he stepped up. What emerged from our engagement with this county agency was a brilliant flood control, stream restoration, and outdoor rec proposal that should be in your packet. By the time we received this proposal from the county in June 2018, Wade Walcott and Daniel Betts were leading the park board and CRC. They worked very well together, and that's how we broke the logjam. Here in 2022, it's been the outstanding work of Joel Gross that broke the second logjam that developer and Wade left for Durham. In closing, I wanted to say a few brief points. At MCURC, it was Sarah Sheets who made it happen, understanding the value of parks and green space to communities. Also, please review the photos and text in this on this project on the Parks Foundation, Cincinnati Parks Advisory Council Facebook page. I hope some of you can visit the site. This transformation of Bramble Park is unfolding there adjacent to the Crown Paved Trail Network, key point. Your packet explains the exciting second part of this two-phase project, which can produce yet another key piece of green infrastructure at Bramble Park. That will be a new ephemeral wetland that will restrain flooding, help restore aquatic life to Little Duck Creek, and move us along the path to make Bramble Park one of the most compelling destinations on the east side. With more federal infrastructure dollars now available and the city announcing yesterday that it's setting aside $2.5 million this year for neighborhood projects through an objective RFP process, this board has the biggest capital project opportunities since the 1970s. That opportunity is to leverage local matching grant funds from the earnings tax, the property tax, and from sewage fees from the MSD, an important point, as in Lick Run, to bag very big green infrastructure projects from the state, the feds, the MSD, and from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. That's also described in your packet. The Corps of Engineers opportunity and the opportunity with the MSD CSO project are massive, as we saw at Lick Run, and can be replicated in other locations. Let's do it.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. This is a project that both CRC and Parks are working collaboratively on, as Bill mentioned. I know that CRC is working on a new master plan for Bramble Park, and I think both groups are dedicated to getting it done, Bill.
Great. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your interest. Sure. We have one other speaker, Sam, and I'm going to blow your name, Sam. Settlemyer. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Settlemyer. I work for the Civic Garden Center. I've talked to you all a couple of times before. I just wanted to provide you all a quick update for Walnut Woods. This weekend we'll be celebrating our kind of grand opening celebration, and you all should have received a little bit of information about that from Rocky, but we wanted to first and foremost invite you all to that, but I also wanted to just give you a quick update kind of on the last year. So going back to, I believe about December of last year, we presented to you all on renaming getting the park officially designated as a park space. And so we've continued to invest our time in that space with monthly volunteer days. We've racked up another probably 1,000 volunteer hours in that time, doing our invasive species removal, trail building. And I would say that the student engagement in the space has really increased over the last year. We as this has been going on for about 6 years now, right? This is a 10-acre parcel of space right next to Walnut Hills High School. It's not only a space that's right next to a school, but also a space that's a community park in the neighborhood of Evanston. So this is a space with a lot of real opportunity, and a space that we've gotten to see really grow over time. It's been 6 years now of going from a pretty neglected green space that you really couldn't even fight your way into to now an open park. And we now are seeing that the students during the school day, they've set up a permission slip so that students can go during the school day out into the woods. And so we're seeing a lot more utilization during the school day by teachers. We're working with students after school doing kind of ecology-based programming in the woods. So I think it's a real model in looking at different park spaces around the city, and it's a space that we are really excited to continue to work in. We've made a lot of headway. We still have a few really problematic invasive plants that we still have on the doorstep to get rid of, but we've continued to invest in that space. So we'd love for you all to come out and celebrate with us. We'll be there this Saturday. We'll have a tree planting in the morning from 9 to about 11:30, and then we'll be switching over to some kind of celebrating all the work that's been done, highlighting some key individuals as well as some of our parks individuals that have made that possible, highlighting some key volunteers who have been involved since the beginning, and then the students will be giving some tours of the space, getting to share a little bit of the knowledge they've learned now over the last couple of years with you all. So I hope you join us. Like I said, about noon on Saturday will be the kind of kickoff ceremony piece of it. We'll do a ribbon cutting, celebrate the signage that we've gotten out there, but we hope to see you there.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sam. Sam, and thank you also for all the individual work that you do involved with parks. I know you spend a lot of time with our Dnr staff and doing a lot of projects, and the great partnership we have with the Civic Garden Center. So thank you for all your work. This is one of the projects I remember when I first came on the board, and a group of teachers from Walnut Hills came over. It's a great example of how we can get kids into our parks and for them to feel like it's their park, and the work that they've done is incredible. So thank you for all that work. It's a wonderful collaboration, and it's a great model that we could hopefully roll out to other schools in our system. So thank you very much, Sam. Okay, sure, absolutely.
I used to be involved with the Civic Garden Center, so I'm curious to know, do you still have a neighborhood gardens project going on?
We do, yes. So we still have a robust community gardens program, and continue to try to really build up different spaces all around the city.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I'll just note that we have received as commissioners some additional input and public comments over the past month. 3 different things I'll mention is there was a follow-up communication with us, thanking us for the time that we allowed for discussion on a skate park somewhere in Cincinnati. And there is continued discussion both with park staff as well as with CRC on the possibility of locating a spot for a skate park in Cincinnati. We've also received, as we all are aware, some positive and some negative comments about proposed dog park in Burnett Woods. And then also the communication we had from Bill and others on the Bramble Park. So we appreciate all public input. We do hear you. We do see all of it. All of our commissioners do. And we welcome any input from our community. With that, we'll move to our quarterly police report, and Captain Swingley is here to tell us all about crime and activities in our park. So welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Captain Dennis Swingley. I'm the commander of the Special Services Section, and I'm here today as your City Parks liaison. So I'm going to present to you the third quarter police stats. I understand you received a copy of this, so I'm just going to touch on the highlights of this report. So year to date, calls for service have seen a 6.7 decrease as compared to 2021. So there in 2021, there was like 2,800 calls for service, and it was reduced this year to about a little over 2,600 calls for service. So looking at calls for service from second quarter, comparing it to third quarter, there's been an 11.1% increase in calls for service. This is likely due to the increased nicer weather and increased attendance. So out of all the city's calls for service that the police go to, like over 68,000 calls for service. City parks accounted for only about 1% of our responding. So the top 10 parks for the third quarter, based on calls for service. Number 1 is Waterfront Park. Number 2 is Mount Airy Forest. Number 3, Fountain Square. Number 4, Washington Park. Number 6, Smale Riverfront Park. And number 6 is Eden Park. All these are highly visited parks. Eden Park was number 1 on the second quarter, which is April, May, June in the beginning, and it's decreased to number 6 for third quarter. So there were 37 offense reports reported in the third quarter, along with 19 arrests. Theft continues to be the predominant issue we have in the parks. So 11 of those 19
Cars typically.
yeah. People leaving items visible in their cars, they should be putting them in the trunk or in the seat. Locking their cars helps a lot too. So 11 of those arrests, out of the 19 arrests, were in Mount Echo Park. This is mostly police responding to complaints in the community and input from the city parks department. So we encourage everyone to get out and see the city parks. The colors are beautiful. So that's all I have for today. Are there any questions?
Is there anything we need that we can do to help in this area, or is there anything that you would like to specifically emphasize with us?
No, I think just people get out and use the parks and enjoy these parks. And if they see something in the police matter, please call 911 or bring the attention to the city parks department, and then we'll follow up.
Well, we appreciate the continued collaboration between parks and the police department. We appreciate it. We depend on you guys a lot, and we appreciate the time that you spend in helping us in the parks.
Thank you.
Well, I need to piggyback on that, sorry, piggyback on that. Just our neighborhood liaison is working with our team on a couple of specific sites in Burnett Woods. Some citizens brought to our attention late this week, and they're getting together on Monday. So the responsiveness has been really great. We appreciate that. So.
Thank you.
Question here?
Yes, on Ziegler Playground. What is the nature, I know it's down, it's not as high as it was at your last report, but what's the nature of what you're seeing there?
People hanging out in the park, some alcoholic beverages, people drinking, and fights resulting in some shootings. And Ziegler Park is surrounded, by Main Street area. Due to those issues, we increase police presence to try to keep that place as safe as possible for people to enjoy that playground.
Sure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. With that, I want to turn over to the director, and please introduce our next topic.
Next up is, for whatever reason, I don't have an agenda, but I'm one person at a disadvantage there, but I think the next person up is
The Crone Conservatory donation.
correct. Thank you. From our friends with the Chili Pepper Club. I got to meet for the first time this morning, but very excited to hear what they have to say. Robert Kroger, the Cincinnati Chili Pepper Club.
Well, good morning.
Welcome, sir. Thank you.
Well, good morning. I wanted to thank you for allowing us to come up here today to present our group to your organization and how we work for the city. If you're unaware, we are working currently with the Water Greenhouse. They're very helpful with us, allowing us to utilize their space for meetings and other type of activities that we have to do to grow peppers and encourage them, and also do fundraising for the city of Cincinnati. Thea, can you go ahead and move forward? If you're not familiar with our group, we've been around for about 25 years. We're a diverse group of people. We come from all walks of life. Everybody in the room here would be welcome to join. Primarily, we have common interests. We all like to garden. We all like spicy foods. And the biggest problem that we have is that we can't find the peppers that we want in box stores. So then we have to basically grow our own. The club originally started by people exchanging plants. They were grown in the basement, and then it kind of became an organized group. And it's been a loose, organization. We really don't have any structure. But we've been working with, various greenhouses throughout our history, and we're coming through here. So we are a member-funded organization, so there's nothing the city really does, or the park board has to do for us from that. We average about 22 to 25 members a year. Sometimes it's larger, sometimes it's smaller. Really just depends upon the interest. We did see a little drop in, during the COVID pandemic, because people were kind of, didn't want to be involved around a lot of people. So we did see some decrease in that. Everything that we do, our dues are based upon our cost, the actual cost, pots, soil, seeds, et cetera, anything that we have to do from that perspective. And then we equally share in the cost. Our typical cost for the past 3 years, or prior to this year, were about $25. This year it was $45 because we had to buy some pots and things like that because of all the things that we've done within the order plant sale. We've, a lot of the pots have, gone to, private homeowners, et cetera. So we are, basically doing fundraising through, our memberships, do all this. In 2022, we planted 62 varieties. We went from anything from decorative to wild. We grew, decorative pepper called Medusa, which had a real pretty peppers that stick out. And then we have, things people are most commonly familiar with, the jalapeno, the serrano, the habanero, but then we start getting into the ghost peppers, Carolina Reapers, things that, a lot of people don't touch because they're too spicy. And within our group, once you pay your membership fee, you can take as many plants as you want. So we grew about 3,000 plants this year. The average, I was talking to Casey over a little bit ago, typical member will take anywhere from, 25, 30 to 50 to 75 plants. So we have quite a few plants that are left over. And if you can go to the next slide. We've been working with water for about 6 years now. We were working with another greenhouse that sold to a private investor, and it's now a shopping center. So we've, we hooked up with water. We've been doing it for about 6 years, and we're primarily a volunteer group within water. We, we use a space for our meetings. We do seed selection. We plant seeds. We do things within the water greenhouse. And then if there's anything that needs to be done within the greenhouse, we're always available to help the facility for that. One of the things that the greenhouse does do for us is they do water our plants. That's one of the services that the greenhouse does for us. They're watering all the other plants that they're using for the park board anyway. So we're there. It's just a couple extra minutes to water ours. And then what we basically do is we take those plants and we donate them to the park board, and water usually has a plant sale every year. And those plants are sold at the plant sale. They're typically about $5 each. And we volunteer, our group comes together, we volunteer at water. We staff the plant sale. We help people carry their plants to cars. We take the plants from inside the greenhouse, bring them out to where the sale space is going to be. So there's a lot of things that we do within the greenhouse that we're working on to help promote the plant sale. One of our members actually has a relationship with Channel 19, and one of our members actually got on to the morning show on Channel 19. There's a link in the presentation to the actual on the Channel 19 when they did the spot on it. And so it was basically promoting, the plant sale, promoting the pepper club, stuff like that. And we saw actually a lot of people saw that and actually came to the plant sale, and it was, a very profitable year for that. Unfortunately, this past year, the city decided for various different reasons not to have a plant sale at water this year. So we had all these plants. We're like, okay, well, our agreement is that we donate all of our plants to the city, you sell them, you guys keep the money. It was just a nice thing that we all have a mutually beneficial relationship. So this past year, we kind of, we were told that there weren't going to be a plant sale. So we're like, well, okay. So the, executive committee of the club got together and said, okay, well, what are we going to do? Well, we decided to go down to 50 West. We had a 2-day sale down at 50 West. They were very accommodating to us. They gave us a little spot. We can set up a booth, a tent. We actually, if you flip to the next sign, you'll see that we at 50 West, this is a picture, we actually had a hand-drawn sign, so we weren't prepared for doing something like this. So one of our members' wives was an artist and actually came up with the logo and did that. And then as you'll see, as we progress down to the sign below, we actually have, and Casey, if you can hold up the sign that we have here. We actually have a professional sign. So one of our members actually owns a sign company. So we took the logo that somebody had hand drawn and put it in there, and we use that here. And as you see at the bottom of the sign, it actually says all proceeds from the sale of the plants are going to go to Conservatory, and the donation is $5. So we've basically been actively promoting your organization, throughout the past year. You'll see the various, the top right sign is our group that we had down at 50 West. You'll see at the top left with the pickup truck, that was my truck. We kind of went to the Anderson Farmers Market, and that was, we were unprepared for any of this. So we were out selling plants, doing our best we can. The bottom right was what we did at Harper's Point. They had something up there at the Fresh Time Market. So we were doing fundraising in various different areas. And the bottom left, you'll see the peppers that Casey actually harvested from his garden. So he's quite the pepper guy. He makes a lot of sauces, a lot of peppers and stuff like that. So what we've done with the money that we've brought, I'd like to present a check of $1,000 to the park board for helping us out. We would like to continue to use the water greenhouse with your permission, and continue the fundraising activities. We've already secured a spot down at 50 West for next year. So we do plan on doing some external fundraising since we were fairly successful at doing that. So we are going to kind of change our pepper. The biggest thing people were looking for at the plant sale that we've been at was jalapenos, and everybody here wanted to grow spicy stuff. So but I donated a lot of plants to the Franciscan Ministries. They have a food over on Compton Road. There's a community garden where they bring in Haitian refugees. Anybody wants to pay for a garden space, they can. So I donated plants to them because they said that they had people that were looking for peppers as well. We did donate some to some of the fire departments around the city, and we've been invited back to all the farmers markets. Actually, I've got the farmers markets contacting me now saying, hey, we'd like to have you guys come in. So, perfect. I don't know who I would give this donation to.
To our director.
All right.
He's always happy.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much.
What's the hottest pepper you've had? Have you eaten a Carolina Reaper?
No.
A scorpion?
This year I've grown, I have about 60 plants in my house. I've grown scorpions, ghost peppers. I actually made a bourbon cherry ghost pepper sauce. It's a very marinate the ghost peppers and bourbon and cherries, and you mix it all together. It is very hot, but it's very good.
How are the burns on your hands?
Well, when you're cutting up peppers, I wear gloves, so therefore, but I have made the mistake of doing this. So I know the burn of the feeling. So, but you have to be careful with some of these peppers. I'm dehydrating a lot of peppers right now. I'm making wing rub, making, all kind of different taco seasoning mix, stuff like that I can use around the house. So we have these uses for the peppers. I've got so many at this point in time. And, Casey, as you saw the pictures that he has up there with the peppers, he's got quite the haul as well. So he makes sauces and various different.
You'd like to taste it? I've got some Carolina Reaper.
There we go.
Somebody gave me a scorpion, and I cut off a little piece and I gave it to my daughter. Then I got photos of her reacting to that, and she drank a quart of chocolate milk in about 30 seconds trying to put that. And I had to have a little bite of it.
Yeah, Carolina Reapers. Ghost peppers as hot as I get.
Yeah.
But a lot of lemon peppers. I made some lemon pepper sauce for some wings. A buddy of mine's a big Bengals fan, so he's gonna go down and make some wing sauce for him that he's gonna use down at the tailgate, stuff like that. But, you know, with your permission, we'd like to continue to work with the water greenhouse and I don't, hopefully there's no issues with that, you know, for next year.
Well, we appreciate the collaboration. We appreciate you giving back to us. That's greatly appreciated. Super.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Thank you.
One? Yeah, I'll take one.
Sure. I'm good too.
I'll take one. That's great.
Here, I'll let you pass
Make
it
us.
over. Thank you, sir. All right, you're welcome.
We'll make it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great. Okay. I don't know how we top that one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sure they're all coming back.
Yes.
It is coming back.
Yes, we can.
Great,
We'll work through the challenges that we had this year.
great.
Welcome.
My friends will be glad to hear that.
Yes.
And it's like directors is an area that we should talk about. It's a nice facility that we have. I think it's a underutilized facility perhaps, but that's something at a future meeting down the road, maybe a tour, something that would be great. Super. Okay, we'll move back into our agenda here. I'm just going to handle our introduction of new hires. Jenny, good morning.
Good morning. So today I would like to introduce you to some new members of our family. First, we have Charmaine Moore, who is the administrative technician for planning and design.
Oh, much love.
We have Antoine O'Neill, who is the administrative technician here at the administration building. Donald Lewis is our facility maintenance specialist for facility maintenance. Danielle Browning, the administrative technician for our finance team. And then we have 3 additional promotions that I would like to announce. Kelly Pillar, she has been promoted to the administrative specialist. Juan Buchanan, who is not here today, but he has been promoted to the service crew leader in operations. And promoted to leader. And we are so happy to have them join our family and look forward to many years.
Well, welcome to all of you, and please, Jenny, your direction and Derek's work, we really appreciate going into getting us some quality employees. There's Derek. Derek, I'm going to embarrass you as you come in the door. We were just thanking you for these new hires. Thank you for all that you're doing with us, and don't let me, you just go on. So thank you for our new employees. Thank you very much.
So he is going to get back to work. We have some other things that we are in progress of doing. We are interviewing for the architect intern. We are also interviewing for the civil engineering technician. We have had interviews already for the architect intern, I should say, and we have a potential candidate that we're trying to work through. And then the civil engineering technician interview soon. And the other items we certainly are moving forward with, but are still working through the process. So I will note we are under 20 for our vacancies.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's encouraging to get the help for all of you who are doing such great work. And hopefully we can keep that going and get to full employment here, hopefully. Super.
Thank you.
Our next item is approval of minutes from our meeting, September 15. I hope that you all have had a chance. If there are any corrections, adjustments.
I just have caution of ones that I didn't get into tea on time. But I will pass those on, nothing substantive.
Okay, perfect. Well, then can I have a motion to approve? And second? Thank you. And we're all here today, so we'll have a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Tia, for another perfect job. We'll do some information updates and I know Joel's on next up on the agenda. Do you want to introduce or do you?
Joel Gross.
Joel Gross needs no introduction.
Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, everyone. Pretty brief this morning. Got a lot going on, but a whole lot just exciting things to update you about today. On the initiative side, we'll say that this is the first month that you're seeing results of anything we've been putting together for this quote unquote brain, as Jason likes to call it. So since I've started, really, Matt DeBona, Chris, myself, and several other people, Craig, Rocky's team, Craig's whole team, have helped us put this together. We're really just trying to compile all of the information that we need to effectively manage everything that we're dealing with. So, Tia, I don't know if those tables are in the packet, but I'd just like to show them those first, just what you're seeing. So the two tables that we included will turn into three very shortly. The first two are things that you have already approved. The long table that you see that totals about $17 million are things that are in progress. And those are projects that already have money encumbered through the Cincinnati financial system. Those are active projects, things that we're working on every single day. There's another almost 5 million, 4.5 in the second table that you would see that's called board approved projects. Those are things that you all have already directed us to do that we should be working on. They're just not initiated inside of the city financial system. These are things we're gathering quotes for, big projects like Inwood that are still developing and what that's going to turn into. What is our budget for those? In a rough order of magnitude numbers. And that just shows you all, those are the next things in the hopper. Beyond all of those things, there's a third list that you'll see shortly. That is called the considerations table. You'll probably see it for the first time next month. That pretty much has everything else. And the goal is to get one spot for everyone to be able to see the next projects that are on the list, things we're thinking about for fiscal year 24, 25 and beyond, so that we can effectively prioritize those now that we have some time before we have to enact some of those projects. That's where the discussion comes in, the actual getting to where we need to be, effectively prioritizing those that we're making the best use of all of our money. That is that considerations tab. Beyond the folks that we've hired, and we're so happy to have Charmaine. She's made an immediate impact. So happy and grateful that she's here. We also have two really, really bright and brilliant co-op students from UC that are helping about 20 hours a week apiece. They are diving into this data management stuff. Matt DeBona and our team has them putting together all the utility stuff for any of the parks that we don't internally know where all of those underground utilities are. They're combing through maps from 100 years ago and getting all that stuff so that we can have that effectively digitized. They're almost done with that stuff already. The reason I bring this up at that point is one of the other things they've done is take the rest of the Branstetter-Carroll report from 2021, and all of those are now synthesized into the same format that you're already seeing in the brain. So that tab is already done, and it was a snapshot in time of projects that were done during that time. So now we're evaluating that at about 40 to 50 projects a week over about 900 projects to make sure that all those are viable, run them through pretty much are those even projects that still need to be done at this point. Once we get that condensed, then you will see the considerations table. That will also include the community budget requests that are coming through, and basically a place where everybody in the community can come and say, hey, my project's not on this list. Why is it not on there? So it's one place that you all can see and the community can see, these are all the projects that Park is focused on. And if your project isn't on there, we need to know why. So those are the initiatives we're score projects, for lack of a better word.
that is very, very close to being conversational at this point. We have that table pretty much built. We're reviewing several different resources. People have scored these projects in the past, Plan Cincinnati, Green Cincinnati, all those things to make sure we're in collaboration with the city's goals and ensuring we put ourselves in the best opportunity to get funding. So we're doing all those kind of things together. Matt DeBone has been instrumental in that. Chris as well, obviously. Chris McGee. We talk through those things every day, and I'm appreciative for the great people I get to work with. Let's see. Beyond those things, I want to say thank you to Jason. It's been awesome working with him this past 2 months already. His enthusiasm is infectious. We appreciate it, and I can't wait to continue working with him. For some fun stuff, I guess, we have a whole lot of projects that are either done or almost done from the past couple of months. And for once, we wanted to show you a few pictures of what we're talking about every single day. So kind of just want to run through these. Thank you to Charmaine and Chris for putting these together. First one that you see, we've talked about many, many times from a safety perspective, Bellevue Park. At the bottom of the hill, you can see on that first picture, all of the rock has been removed. All of that loose rock is completely gone. Bruce did an amazing job. They were safe. That's a hard place to enact some construction fencing, but they did a great job. No accidents that I'm aware of whatsoever. Kept the site very, very clean. All of that rock that was usable has been taken to Sinton, and we are going to use all of that in some form or fashion for pavers and things inside of our landscapes. So we didn't waste anything. That picture there was taken a couple of weeks ago, as you're seeing right now. That's after all the rock was removed. We probably got 3 or 4 pretty good loads of that limestone that we're going to use. So we didn't waste anything. You see right there that they've taken all the fencing down. That fencing has been replaced right now. A company came from Cleveland and did that. Yes, ma'am, it's already in. The only thing that isn't done for this, the top of the fence was sutured by our own folks in anticipation of getting some heavy duty stuff that's on back order. So we're waiting on that cable right now. Should be in very soon, like the first week in November, get all that stuff done. Kudos to Matt and his team and the volunteers that helped clear the top of this Bellevue, the overlook. I've never seen that view from there before. So it's starting to look really awesome, and that project's done. Looks really, really great.
Joel, this project is striking. I was by there yesterday, and it's incredible. What is going to, will we continue to have erosion like that?
Absolutely.
So what we have done is just allowed for being able to accommodate, because that's such a high wall there.
Yes.
A rock wall.
Yes, sir. So from my understanding, Commissioner, about 5 years ago, that the onus of taking care of this went from public services to parks. At that point, there was already a lot of loose rock behind that wall. And in the 2 or 3 years beyond, it got to the point that it was overdone, to the point or overflowing to the point that you saw the stuff go out onto the creek. Since we've taken it over, I think that's the first time that that's been cleared in about 10 years. But you're essentially back to existing condition of when it was put in.
Okay.
So you are going to get that. There are things we can do beyond this. The same company that put that net in right there also does geo netting of the whole face. So that could be a next step if we find that that rock is a detriment to the road below. But we think that we can solve it as we have pretty much, as long as we can keep the kids from throwing rocks off of there. I think this will certainly mitigate any of the rock that's just flowing onto the road from overflow from this.
Have you had any comments from the residents?
Some positive comments for sure, Commissioner, but still comments about folks throwing rocks. That's the main concern. It's hitting their roofs. I was skeptical at first when I was, evaluating this project, said, oh, it's just bouncing off and hitting into the road. But now that I've seen video and things like that, I know it is still a concern. We're still going to do more things to mitigate access to that area, including our own internal DNR, cutting some of that brush, loading the brush at the front of the entrance there when we finally fix this fence and make it very, very unattractive for folks to try to get back through there. So everything we can to mitigate folks trying to get out to that overcrop. If we see a lot of stone or big pieces falling, we may reevaluate the need for that major geotechnical netting on the side of the face.
Are they entering back from the playground? Is that where the entry is?
Right off of the pavilion, Molly, when you walk down there, there's a corner. That's where they cut every single time. There's a little stone stepway down from the top. That's where they intended to cut. I was kind of hesitant to have the parks folks clear that honeysuckle and brush from the overlook, just for that reason. But it's a long trek through a whole lot of stuff to get there around that way. It's mainly went through that main corner in the fence right at the bottom of the pavilion. There
was talk about people climbing up too, and I know Chris knows some of the folks that are hikers around the area, and we'd even asked our own channels, like, how do you get up here? And there was a way from the bottom. It was not very attractive to me. As a Marine, I didn't even want to walk through that.
Speaking of climbing, I've been seeing people rappelling off of the, over here by Tom Jones Commons. Is that permitted?
I do not know that, Molly. I don't know if that's allowed or not.
And it's been done forever.
Yeah, I was surprised we don't allow hammocks, but we're okay with people
Yeah.
rappelling.
You know, and
Is the netting very expensive?
Yes, ma'am. I think to replace this was in the neighborhood of 40 or 50,000 bucks, but they had to do a lot of structural reconditioning of the.
Because it's very effective, the
It's
netting.
very effective,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yes, Commissioner, to answer your question, it would definitely be a $200,000 plus
Thank you.
project to do that whole face, if not quite a bit more than that.
They just did that all along Columbia Parkway. It's massive.
It's millions and millions, as you know, Molly.
Yes. Oh, this is great.
As Mr. Collins mentioned, Bramble Little Duck Creek restoration is in full swing. As you're seeing there, those are some good shots of the riprap and the riparian zone prepared there. We had two really, really bad clogs. Essentially, think of it as blood clots. Right there at the edge of that circle, you can see that the stream widens out very much. They took a huge tree out of there and a whole bunch of debris, which now will right the stream in that area, pull the foul wag or the lowest point in that stream back over towards the circle where it should be, and allow that to armor without hurting any of the properties across the stream. So great, very effective project. As of this week, I know our land manager, Garrett Dnr, has been in contact with those folks, and they're getting ready to plant the riparian zone, which will help hold erosion from the side getting down into the riprap. Above that riprap rock line that you see there is essentially where those plantings will be done. All looks really, really good. I've looked at the site 2 or 3 times myself, been out there personally, and they're doing a great job. So we anticipate completion of that project in the next couple of weeks and then demobilizing completely once those plantings are in place. Just some really cool pictures of that. You see a lot of riprap. The bottom stones in that picture are about 2 feet, just for reference, and they kind of go up to about 1 foot at the top of the crest there. So some big stuff, energy dissipating stone. See the next one? Maybe a few more pictures in there, that one. Couple more pictures of that one. There's a good shot of the big.
So
Yes,
what's
ma'am.
above the stone, is that gonna, what's gonna be, that's got some kind of something on the top, what is that?
The stone that runs across the.
I see the stone, but then
Okay.
to the right of the stone, what's?
Oh, okay, so that is a coconut fiber mat. It's essentially, the matting that they put over top of grass when you do that, just slows erosion until the plantings can get established. In this situation, they'll actually cut holes in that spot that you see and plant live plantings in there. That is called the riparian zone, RIP, riparian. That's just a erosion technique. So you got all this,
Right.
and all that goes down to the ground. So they prepped that already for this, so you're not getting under erosion through there. And then on top of that, you'll get the big plantings, and that's what they're doing this week.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Here's a great picture of it.
yeah, it's,
Yeah.
Trailside Nature Center is our next project. It's essentially the 2 pieces that you see in here that are new are those concrete or crop outs there that have the 2 holes in them. Those will hold the 2 trees that go back in there that align with the rest of the nature center. That work is done. Lithco has completed that as of a couple of weeks ago. We're essentially just need to put those 2 logs back in. One of those we have. One of those we have to find, and it's a pretty interesting tree because it has to be about 24 feet long minimum with no bigger than a 10-inch diameter. So Garrett is actively finding one of those when it falls or when we need to effectively manage a tree, we're gonna put one in there. So, the building that we're sitting in, the admin building here at Eden Park, you can see there at the top of that is the brand new roof. That is a rubberized roof. It's a whole lot. My architect tells me it's a whole lot better than shingles, and I'll trust him in this situation because that's his specialty. But essentially, there's nowhere for the water to go. That's how I understand it. Just 10 big shingles instead of a whole lot of little ones. That roof is done. There's still netting, as you can see. That flagging is there so that the guys can come back and do the final touches to the trim. I think they're waiting on a couple pieces of that. That project's effectively finished as well.
They even let me get up there and wander around to see what kind of roof in my new home, so.
What kind of a guarantee do you have on the length of that?
The warranty on those, Mrs. Castellini, I will find out, I believe it's at least 10 years, but the roof should last much more.
I have a lot of rubber roofs.
Yeah.
I can tell you it's no more than 10 years. So get ready.
I was told it's a lot lighter. Formerly, there was that stone roof that was really heavy, but was really heavy and had a lot of, could lead to some damage, where this new roof will be easier to replace as well, so they were explaining to me.
It is less expensive to replace.
Yes. Tom Jones Commons, this one's been a long time coming. What you see here is all of it graded, and all the areas that are brown there, that's brand new topsoil. So we came back in, Bruce came back in the area outside the loop, it's generally about 2 additional inches of topsoil to go over that reservoir rubble. On the inside of the loop, we put 3, and in different areas for different plantings, we put a little bit different depth, varying from 2 to 4 inches. It looked like a golf course. Bruce's guys did an amazing job. I just want to commend them again, Jared McFadden. They did an amazing job, this whole team. So it's already seeded. They drilled in the seed, so it's not on the surface with mulch. They actually drilled the seed into the ground, so it's got a little bit of rain, but Forever Green is already, thanks to Jenny, working through the maintenance contract, which will help for the next year. You can see that the mounds were sodded in that picture. That's fresh sod right there in both of those. Makes it a little more safe for the kids to play. It's going to turn out fantastic. This time next year, it should look just phenomenal. So we're happy with how that's turned out. Closing that project out right now.
Josie, it's incredible the difference that made. I mean, it looks beautiful, and I actually heard from the donor the other day. Tom is thrilled with the work that's been done to remediate and to put it into a condition that looks great. Now we just need some rain and some grass to grow.
That's right.
And there's no problem with people being on that.
We've set it up in such a way that it's minimalized. That was exactly why we drilled that seed in, because instead of kicking it around on the top, those guys came in, they drilled it in so they can get some foot traffic on top of there. It's not going to hurt it so bad. It's going to, the ground was aerated in such a way it's not going to really hurt it. So yeah, we know that this is going to get used, and we're happy that it does. So we set it up that way on purpose.
People also seem less likely to walk in the dirt than they do on grass.
Yep.
So when I was over there a couple times, people were always kind of sticking to the paths, the areas that felt activated.
Inevitably on that project, there's going to be a couple of water spots where we don't like that there's silt on the sidewalks or things like that. We'll polish that over the next few months and make sure it's perfect by this time next year. Tia, I don't know what you got next. Ezra Charles, just essentially want to say this. Monday of this week, we were standing on that platform, and the only thing that was there was that platform. The stone was in Vermont. The statue has been good all along, but thank you to everybody in Parks that made that possible and come together. Thanks to all the foundation help, Jennifer Spicer, Jason, Steve Pasella for babysitting, just like Jenny Mobley, making sure that all of those pieces came together. Matt Hood and his whole team, Lou and his whole team, the construction guys, Paul, those folks and their whole team. Just a phenomenal job. So thank you for everyone that made that a success. It really showed me, it was a learning moment for me to see how powerful our internal parks team was. So what we can do when we put our mind together, I think it was a success.
And what it showed, I think all of us, is the importance of a neighborhood park. And to see that whole neighborhood, that opening, and celebrating it and really activating was just awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just add, we've been in contact with some folks in the community since that, and they're establishing a CPAC just for that purpose, to continue to activate the space in terms of events, and also want to do volunteer work, litter pickups and things like that.
And the neighborhood's been told that we care.
Yeah.
That's the important. Thank you, Jennifer.
Really good.
Yeah, okay. A couple more updates for you. That is the Gibson House. They are actively right now fixing the portions of the wood that are messed up on there and repainting the whole outside. All of that white trim that you see is getting a new coat of paint, long overdue, but it should look phenomenal when they're done. That's I don't know what percentage of construction is going through there right now, but I would say they're about 50% done. They're 2 weeks into it right now. So that was going
inside this facility?
I'm sorry, Molly, I didn't hear
What
you.
happens inside
This
house?
is where
There's weddings.
TPE, who is the company that we contract with to manage all all of our rental outside of Anderson Pavilion and the Carousel. And so they do all of our weddings around the various other parks, and this is the facility they operate out of.
So they've got offices on the second floor.
Mhm.
And then there are wedding accommodations.
So they don't do weddings at this event, this event.
They can, it would be a smaller wedding, but they do smaller celebrations, holiday events, some family reunions or something, but it's a smaller facility down below to handle really a full wedding, maybe a smaller wedding you could certainly, but
So this is
Occasional
only
rentals.
office space.
For the most part, there's a little bit of movement space, as Jenny mentioned, but my understanding is it's not used as much for that purpose. It's mostly office space, but it's definitely a facility that has a lot of potential for us in the future.
There's a pretty big lawn there too, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
there is behind, yes.
And our friends at the Park Foundation have a very nice office next door,
It's the carriage house.
Yeah.
Everything is
Yeah,
there.
it's a massive property.
which is pretty beautiful.
And where is the Mitchell Wall in our next photos here?
Mitchell Triangle Park was next to the Belvedere Condo Association.
Oh, that's what that's called.
Yes, so we,
I never knew.
I didn't know that either.
so they actually had sold that property quite a long time ago with the understanding that the Belvedere Condo Association would take care of the green space. So the second or third day I got here, citizen called about this wall and said, "When are you gonna fix my wall here?" So we had to go through law, figure out if that was our responsibility. It's a great learning opportunity for me to see, the intricacies of some of those deals and the memorandums of understandings and leases that went into some of these properties. So Howard fixed that. Howard Masonry did a great job on it. That wall, you can see the new masonry there. Some of that was broke. Kids were throwing rocks into the street. And over the course of a couple months, we got those guys to fix that. So that one's completely done.
So is there a sign that says Cincinnati Parks in that?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
I've never seen.
I haven't even.
That's a cool little green space for sure.
Oh, yeah.
This one we talked about before, but just to show you the overall rapid run playground and walkway, that it just turned out phenomenally well. So Adlita did a great job on that. They came back and restored some of the erosion issues on Gurley Road. That was really what we were waiting on to close that project out. It's done now. I think both pieces, the playground and the walkways, are a great addition to this amenity.
Great.
Is that it, Tia?
Smell.
Just goes to go, when you're that busy. This is tremendous.
Yeah, this one there's the playground. That's Rapid Run's new playground, accessible features. You can notice right there, one thing that's cool about this picture, we're going to continue to expand upon, and everything that I have a hand in is two of those features there. We made sure were accessible for wheelchair folks. On the side opposite this, we actually had them pave underneath, so the wheelchair folks, anyone that's in a wheelchair, can come on and utilize at least a couple of those play pieces. Everything that we do is aimed towards accessibility and inclusion for everyone. So you can guarantee that Chris and myself are looking for opportunities to expand that accessibility in every playground that we do.
So if I'm a parent, and is there a place I can go online? Can I go to our website and search?
Accessible
Which-
playground.
Yeah.
No, ma'am, but there will be.
Okay.
When that accessibility component goes, much past just playgrounds, it's something that we're talking about with paths, parks. Accessibility is a challenge because we got a lot of topography intentionally in a lot of cases, but we're looking for opportunities to make sure that upper areas, lower areas, and pavilions and shelters have walkways that make sense, not just from a paved, from a cement standpoint, but also from a green standpoint, to make sure they wind their way up the appropriate slope. And Joel makes that just such a principle in all of our discussions. It comes up. He's always got a time, which is really important.
Yeah, Jason
We do
brings
have
up.
an accessibility section on the website that folks can go look at. And if they've got questions about a site or need an accommodation, there's information on how to contact us.
Okay.
Thank you, Rocky. I didn't mean to imply that you all didn't do that.
But if you're building these online, you have to figure out where to tag them right now.
Sweet.
Yeah.
To back up for 1 second, I only spend 30 seconds telling you about it. So what we built with the brain is step one. That helps you identify money and keep track of all those projects. What we're building now is the asset management plan, which is everything that you all are talking about. How long has it been since this roof has been fixed? What are our assets? How many of them do we have? When can we expect to have to do maintenance on these things? So that is the next year of our life is instead of just cataloging parks, now we're down to cataloging roofs, anything, all of our assets above a certain threshold so that we can quickly find things, order things, and react to things that we need within the park system.
And that has applications across the board, so
Across the board.
folks that work in our stock room and are making sure we have stuff available so that we can place things quickly, we know how many we have, we know how many we're using in years, we know how many we need to have ready for the following year. Then looking at that, not just from kind of like common sense things, but just everything to make sure we're kind of staying ahead of that instead of being reactive.
Great. I'm gonna take 30 more seconds just to give you an update on the emergency stuff that we told you about from last month. Alms Park sanitary sewer, last month I told you that that was essentially gonna become a project, and we had Pedco trying to add that to the water main bill. They did that, we've already got that design back. I sent them final comments yesterday on that design, and we're essentially gonna go out for emergency bids only on that sanitary portion of this. Could be quite expensive, and it may certainly be in the next month to where we have a quote for that information. Beyond that, we'll back up and do the water main more traditionally, a traditional bid like we started on that part of it is not an emergency. And we're gonna respect purchasing process and only use the emergency when we need to. So we should have an answer for you on what that cost is next month. Just wanted you to be aware that it's moving forward and the design is already complete. Let's see. The only other one I think I need to mention to you all is the Park Dnr Headquarters. We're working with Crystal and her team to help make sure that our DNR folks have a home in the next few months here when the NIOSH building becomes, unusable for their spaces. We're planning everything we can to make sure that Deal Road is ready, that the Ludlow site is ready for them to come in, at least in the interior. We may still be finishing the site, but we certainly can use all the help. The director's been helping us already just to ensure that that is our timeline. I know there's some purchasing things that have happened at that level, the property sale things that are kind of slowing that transition from more of a real estate project to a, engineering project. So we'll get some timelines on what they think from that, but we're pushing that as hard as we can. And that's a high priority for us to make sure our team and our internal staff has a place to work out of and do their jobs. So just wanted to mention that to you. We're on top of that. Tim Sharp and KZF and their team are working on that specifically with us. So we're in good hands and we're moving it. So
If that doesn't work out, we might have to have stations of people at your various offices around the city. Crystal's team has good office space, so be ready for that ask.
Fortunately, there's plenty of available office space.
Yeah.
Commissioners, I believe that's all I have. You all have me.
Great job.
Great, awesome.
Joe, Jason may call this the brain, but I think we're looking at the brain. I mean, this is,
Call it Joel brain.
I want to say one more thing because I forgot to mention this. When Bill was praising me for the work that I did in helping this project through with Bramble, it was not me, it was Chris McGee. He told me about the project and told me the things that needed to be done to make sure that it got to the finish line on time. So I just wanted to ensure that when I'm standing up here taking this praise, that you all know I get to work with some amazingly smart people. I get to hear it in person, but I like to echo that they're doing the work here.
Joel, I have a
Thank you.
question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
We give a lot of people credit, and
That's very important.
yeah, another
Absolutely.
part of great leadership.
Yeah.
It feels like, when you came on board, there was just so much to get caught up with. I mean, it's just like, it's been a while for us to get a grip. It's sort of starting to feel like you might see an opportunity to get out of the needs of, I don't know, just.
We're 3 months from being at the top of the crest, Molly, if you want to know what I really think. We're 3 months from being to where we have where he is up to speed. Had to give him 4 months to actually know all the parks, like I still don't know, but beyond that, by the end of this year, we should have a pretty good handle on what we need to do moving forward, I think.
So remind me, Joe, how long you been here?
6 months yesterday, I believe, Commissioner.
I'm gaining on it quickly. I don't know if I'll catch it, but I'm gaining on it.
So it just sort of set up, and we can talk about this later in commissioner comments, but just thinking about the opportunity for some bigger picture planning.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much blocking and tackling to do on the immediate needs of the park, no question. But I'm seeing like on
We are certainly, the forward thinking and the proactive, and if we can get some shovel-ready projects ready that we know our needs and, priorities of the park system, we certainly have partners that can help us raise money for those things. So we're trying to get to that point to where we can arm our partners instead of them asking, you know, what can we throw $2 million at? Here's what you can throw it at. Things that we actually need to do, and aligning those priorities is helping communicate better as a team.
Super.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll continue to talk about exciting things with one of our trust funds.
Thank you, commissioners. I should go ahead of Jewel next time.
Yeah.
So as you're aware of, every year we budget for the Commissioners Fund. One of those funds is the House Fund, Fountain Square Fund. This is a fund that has about $1.4 million in the balance, and it generates between about $80,000 to $90,000 up to $100,000 annually distribution for income. And that income has a sole purpose for Fountain Square beautification. And additionally, when Frederick A. House set this up, this was back in 1976, there was no city money going into really Fountain Square for organizations to support Fountain Square. Today, 3CDC is provided $200,000 annually to support Fountain Square as well. And because of this, we're seeing a budget around $50,000 to $60,000 from this fund being used for beautification at Fountain Square. That means there's a remaining up to $30,000 or $40,000 that's going into the balance of the Commissioners Fund. And that fund for the House Fund right now is around $210,000. Reaching out and speaking with Fifth Third, we were looking at, is there an opportunity, because this is a very restricted fund, to make this a semi-restricted fund similar to what we did with the Geyer Fund. And working with Fifth Third Bank, working with Taft Law, identified there is a path forward for this private foundation to go ahead and make it a semi-restricted fund where any proceeds remaining after the funding of Fountain Square could go towards Sooty Acres, then any funding remaining after that could go to any other downtown parks. And today I'm in front of you today asking to move forward with Fifth Third Bank, the Taft Law Forum, as well as bringing the House family into the conversation about making that fund semi-unrestricted.
I just have one question, and it may have been answered and I just don't remember it. Is it mandated that you take 5%?
This is a private foundation that we are mandated to take 5%.
Got it, thank you.
So, the question I have is, I think this is a real proactive way to approach this, given that there's more money there than we need for Fountain Square. What I wanted to understand is the rationale for the excess being spent in downtown parks. Because it seems to me like Fountain Square, many of the parks in downtown are doing pretty well. So I was wondering what was the rationale for not considering, or at least proposing, that money, that excess be spent in some of the neighborhoods.
Good to start that conversation with Fifth Third Bank and Taft. Really, we're looking at that third portion would be just in case scenario there is additional funding, because we are well aware of the needs of Sooty Acres, and majority of that money will easily be absorbed by Sooty Acres. Sooty Acres currently has a actual trust fund set up for itself. It generates around $20,000 to $24,000 a year, and that is not enough funding to support Sooty Acres. So knowing, staying with the House family, having it go from the Fountain Square to Sooty Acres will absorb all that income.
Yeah, I hear you. And you also put in a third option.
Yes.
Just in case. And so the just in case, my push is, how about considering some funding outside of downtown?
So it sounds like the next steps, if we pass this today, would be to engage the family and the third and Taft to try to make this. And I think that as part of that conversation, what I'm hearing from Craig is that it might have just been that was kind of the language that was used in the initial conversations that got us to this point. And so I think we can take that feedback and use that going forward to see what feedback we get from them. It might be something that they care greatly about. It might be something that was just like, that makes sense. And so I think that's great feedback. And we'll get into the conversations moving forward.
Are we assured that 3CDC will continue to put in this money?
That for the 3CDC money, city 3CDC, I can't speak on that.
Yeah.
So nothing's guaranteed with city funding in the future. Well, what we've certainly seen is that 3CDC gets the funding asked for often with the city. And the other good thing about this is that it changes what we can do with it, but if we need to, we can always use fountain square as the number one priority in that cascade that Craig described. So we can always spend more there.
That's correct. Fountain Square will always be number one. This is any that we share.
Well, and so in this conversation, I fully agree with what Linda was saying. It struck me as well. The other funds that we have that do allow, so like with Fleischman, that says you must maintain Fleischman, and then you can use it at any other city park. So I think if the Hauk family has not been engaged yet in those discussions, I would really push with Fifth Third to just leave out that downtown word. And then number two, even if for whatever reason, if that stays, the funds, we can direct them, the funds that we are using today out of our quote general funds for Studi Acres, we could then ensure, and I think what we're saying to you all is that we want to make sure that if we get endowment funds to do that, the funds that we have been using out of general funds to maintain Studi Acres, let's look for opportunities in neighborhood parks.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have any objections to proceeding with this? No, I think it's a great move for us, and I appreciate you taking the lead on that.
Yeah.
Great.
So Craig, do we need an official vote or is that not?
I would like to have a vote.
I'd like to move that we accept the recommendation of staff to pursue changing the restrictions associated with the Hauk Fountain Square Fund. Is there a second?
Second.
There's multiple seconds. All those in favor say aye. Thank you. Thank you. You know, before I turn it over to the director for his comments, it means we were talking and listening. We're talking about the brain of Cincinnati Parks. This room today, right now, who's sitting here, I am so impressed looking out, and as Molly said, it's maybe a breath of fresh air that all of a sudden we can celebrate parks and we can sit up here as a commission and feel very, very good with those of you sitting in this room. I mean, as I sit here and look, you guys really are doing an exceptional thing to with Jennifer, with our foundation sitting here. This is what makes Cincinnati Park. So I appreciate that. I want to turn it over to Jason because you're doing a great job in leading this.
Thank you. Well, as always, thank you so much for the honor to lead this. I'm still pinching myself that I get to come here every day and work with this talented staff, as you've identified. My goal was to keep commissioners' directors' comments short, except we're just doing a lot of stuff. So I have a lot of stuff to talk about, unfortunately. First of all, I just want to say, how about Blink? Hopefully a lot of to get down. Parks was shown in that, whether it was the stuff at Ziegler Park or Washington Park or along the riverfront. Lou and his team, Casey and others, just did an outstanding job. Compliment Lou because and with the partnership with the foundation, which funded 3 different installations, from the skating rink and that activation to the activation, the Enchanted Forest at Schmidt Lawn, and then Brianna's garden down in the Rose Garden. It was just really great to be down there, and they did a great job. I also want to really compliment Lou for his entrepreneurship. For the first time ever, we had food trucks at the Castellini Garden, or Castellini Esplanade, and I think we had 3 or 4 food trucks, and then we also had beer sales with our partners at Mad Tree. And so I was talking to Lou yesterday. I think we netted something around $15,000 to $20,000 of income from activating that. And we kept our prices just a little bit under the Blink drink prices. And so, you know, it wasn't like we were selling $10 beers. We did a good job of getting folks, just a home run. I also want to mention that we had a Reds game night for our volunteers. We had on Tuesday, October 4th, thanks to the Castellinis for making a volunteer night. This was an initiative of Steve Pasella, interim director, who did a great job of of working with Commissioner Kessley to do that. I think we had like 70-ish volunteers that went down and were at the Reds game. On a, not compared to today, but a chillier night for early October, but we still had a great time at the game, and it was a walk-off win, which was pretty exciting. Exactly, and so. Great way to thank our volunteers. Purchased a couple beers that night, so I was trying to help out. I also want to update you on the capital budget. So, or capital funding that's come to our closeout process with the city. Yesterday, they approved $3.5 million for Cincinnati Parks for 3 different projects. One of them is $1 million to armor the Snail Riverfront on the western edge between Roebling and the edge of the park. Another $1 million towards the Inwood Park rehabilitation that brings our total up to $4 million, and $1.5 million for California Woods to look at some. Joel's going to know the technical words, but look at how the stream comes into that park and how over and over again that water affects it, and to make sure we kind of control that a little bit better to make sure we don't see some of the deterioration that we've seen. So that's great news. Additionally, there's up to maybe another $1 million that we're discussions to get with the council members over the next week, and we're hopeful that next Wednesday we can see another $1 million coming into Cincinnati Parks for capital projects. So great news. We've talked about the Ezra Charles statue, which is another great thing that happened. Hats off luncheon, another time that our parks operations team, our events team with Lou set up a great event, and Jen just threw an amazing party down there that was a lot of fun. Linda got to come down and see it. It was just a really great event with 1,000 people maybe down there. I felt like everywhere I was turning, I was shaking and being new people. It was a little overwhelming. And then the last kind of update of what we've been up to was we participated in an interdepartmental kickball tournament last night. And so 10 brave souls from the Cincinnati Parks Department, including myself, went out and played kickball last night. We played up against the Recreation or Commission. So Jim had some divided loyalties maybe. But we played the Recreation Commission the last time it was a kickball tournament, which might have been back in and we lost like 30-2, I was told. So not good. And so I'm happy to report that last night we performed much better and we lost 9-0. So definite improvement.
Sounds like a lot of defense.
It was a lot of fun. We actually scored a run in the first inning, but then they used some rule. Of course, they had Recreation Commission referees umpires, and they called our run back for some sort of an illegal kick. I don't know how you kick ball illegally, but we had a lot of fun. It was really great. We had a photo that. Did you get the photo? Okay. Anyways, we have a really fun photo of us that we took afterwards, but it was a really great event and a lot of fun. So coming up, we got a lot of fun stuff. Saturday is Relief. This year we're giving away 1,000 trees at Mad Tree. I'll be there around 10 or 10:30, and we're inviting the media down with our partners at Mad Tree, and then also Dnr Energy, which stepped up in a big way and provided not just kind of a grant like they've given in the past, but really close the gap to get to that full funding of 1,000 trees. And so we're really excited for that. After that, I'm heading over to Walden Woods Evanston, which is a park that we talked about earlier, and I will be there. If anybody wants to join, I'll be there at noon in order to kick that park off right, which is pretty exciting. On Tuesday, I believe 10 a.m. Is the opening of the Tierra project in partnership with Tri-State Trails, and that is a kind of a sculpture sitting area is the best way I describe it, that is right down there kind of at the public landing and the entrance to Yateman's Cove, and a really cool project that just as a person who runs the parks, I've been wondering what the heck's going on there forever. And then I get this job and I find out the details of it, but we're going to open that officially on Tuesday. It's pretty fun. The Celestial Holiday Show at Crone. We're currently changing out Crone from the really unbelievably successful Prismatica show, which brought in, I believe, an additional $350,000. And that's a new show that Mark and our team put together this year. And science and light, it was a good installation. We talked to the folks in this room. But there's just
what's the date of that?
The start of the holiday show is, so Rocky gave me very extensive notes that I only kind of look at. November 5th through January And it's gonna feature beautiful new model music hall as part of that. There's also a fall event series that includes story walks through various woods featuring the very important caterpillar at Lebeto Woods, Lebuedo Woods. I'm gonna get that one. It's gonna Lebuedo Woods Nature Center. Adult active guided hikes throughout several of our parks, including California Woods, Mount Airy, Alt Park, McFarland Woods, French, Burnett Woods, and more. Campfire on the Bluff under the stars, California. International Chickens Day, which gotta be at that, at Burnett Woods. Fossil Fun Creek Critters at Stanberry, and then the Crone Family Craft Nights on the tomorrow night, 10/21. So again, we could talk all day. There's stuff going on all over. We could just do presentations by staff morning to night, but it's just amazing how many amazing people are working through the parks. So that's just great. Make sure I'm not missing anything. And then last up, kind of as a more informative thing, MSD, the Metropolitan District, is doing a repair project on a sanitary sewer that goes through Alt Park. It starts kind of up near Observatory, and it kind of follows the Valley Trail down through the park, and then it ends down at Red Bank. And so the entire project is inside the tunnel. Or inside the tunnel. I call it a tunnel because I guess it's like a 6-foot tall sewer pipe, right? That they're coating with concrete or like a concrete type substance. And so they'll be moving along this path, right? I get to learn all this cool science from Joel and from my partners in this job, but they're gonna be moving along this path and coating it with this concrete to kind of shore it up, which will be great because it'll prevent any sort of leakage into Alt Park. But there will be some trails shut down over the course of this work, and that work is going on from it basically is occurring Monday through Thursday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for about 10 weeks. And so there will be some temporary trail shut down throughout the time as that happens.
Jason, can I add?
Of course.
There's been a lot of talk about that community involvement. We appreciate that always. But so what they're doing with the MSD project is the evolution of slip lining, where it's exactly like what Jason's existing pipe, and line it with a 2 or 3 inch polymeric concrete that binds to the outside of that, and then essentially makes it so they don't have to redo the whole pipe instead. We're gonna allow do all the invasive clearing of the trees on top of all that stuff. That's great. Way better than what they're doing for. We're getting a really good relationship with MSD, working through some of our parks. We met with them yesterday at another park that they're gonna do some work on to identify some of this infiltration, because that creates sinkholes and bad spots within our parks. That's right, we're actually working hard to identify any of those issues and build that relationship so we can get those fixed and ID bill when they're the responsible party. So just piggyback what we said, that MSD's been a great help to us lately.
Got a stink bug over here. It's just a stink bug.
Sorry, but I saw him fly in. I wanted to make sure.
No worries. How do you know it's him?
I saw them fly in. It's a very good point.
What is it, a stink bug?
Yeah.
It's a stink bug, right?
Hey, Mrs. Castelli, Chris told me that there's a 20-year warranty on this roof, on this building.
20 years, good on you.
Good.
See, we're getting updates right throughout. That's how we knock it out, right? You ask a question, give us 20 minutes.
It's real time.
I love it.
That's great.
So I think that's a lot of new information, but just a lot of fun stuff coming up. So onward and upward. Thank you.
Speaking of MSD, I mean, they really do cause us some grief in our parks. I swear, as soon as they got finished with one major project in Rossum Woods, they came back for another multi-month project.
They're dealing with a whole lot of old infrastructure right now, Molly. The one we looked at yesterday was a 76-inch brick sewer coming into a 130-inch brick sewer.
Can you imagine? They're made out of bricks.
Oh,
You ever
I
seen
know.
one?
I
They're
have.
almost still better than what we put in today.
Yeah.
They kind of made those 100 years ago. I pulled those out that looked like they just got put in.
And they can line those with this substance?
Yes. It's evolved quite a bit. When I was doing it every day 10 years ago, they used epoxy. So we would do it and go fix even brand new stuff, places where the inside of bells, where big pipes meet, a TV that comes in and all that, they always break, so you can fix that. You take a piece of mesh, essentially line it with epoxy on both sides, run it down on a skateboard inside of this pipe, and then blow it up and let it sit on the inside of that until it baits for 5 hours. And you don't have any more infiltration, so you don't have any more dirt getting into the pipe. That's essentially what they're doing now, but MSD has miles of this. Why I mentioned that specifically with Alt Park is there's a lot of community engagement that's been going on, wondering why we're not really fixing the trail at this exact moment. Well, we're essentially waiting because once this infiltration is gone now, you're gonna have more superficial flow. Then we'll be able to inform an actual high water mark on that trail to make sure that when we armor it, much like we did at Bramble, that we're actually getting the water where it needs to be and getting the height that it needs to be. So we're not trying to slow play that. We understand that there's grant money involved for that trail restoration. We're appreciative of that certainly, but we're doing this in the right order so that we can effectively use that money. That's where we are with all part. Anyone wants to know? I'll shut up.
Your music to my ears.
Okay, we'll open it up then for commissioners' comments and discussion. Who would like to?
Go down the line or jump around?
You, I'll let you go first.
Okay. The change in attitude is just unbelievable. And maybe it starts with you, I don't know, or maybe it starts with Joel, or maybe it starts with each of these members of the staff, I don't know, but the change in attitude is remarkable. And no longer are there problems, they're just opportunities.
Yes.
I just can't applaud you all enough. It is so much more fun to come to a meeting.
I agree. It's like the glory of volunteerism has finally arrived. Yes.
Unreal.
So thank you.
And thank you
That's
for
great.
saying that, Susie, so I don't have to repeat everything. But it's just a really good feeling. And I've always known since I came here, we had an incredible staff. And there's just no doubt about that. And it shows up every day in all kinds of ways. And I really appreciate that. Welcome again to our director. Thank you so much. And I'm just so optimistic about what else we're going to do. And I also, in my last comment, I want to shout out Crystal. Crystal came to the Avondale Community Council meeting and talked about trees. It was great. It was really good. I think and she came with Council Member Jeffries. And what I think happened is some real education about trees that people don't have. Yeah, they're nice to look at, they're provide shade and all that, but the environmental benefit is so important, and I don't think people recognize that. So I appreciate taking the time to go around and teach people, and that's part of what we do here. So thank you, and thanks to the staff for all you do.
Molly?
I can't say anything else. I mean, I agree. This is such a great team, and I'm just so proud of everything that we've accomplished. There were a few missing pieces in the team for some time, and I have a lot of confidence in everyone here. It's really exciting.
Question for Crystal. Have we seen any Asian jumping worms?
Oh, yeah.
And the lantern bugs.
Personally seen any Asian jumping worms.
And none of those 8 lanterns.
I'm glad you brought up invasive species. So, I have been bringing up the issue with bamboo.
Bamboo, I knew it.
Yes, it is a serious problem and is a major threat to our forest health. And I have been studying up on this through my search, and many municipalities have prohibited the planting of bamboo generally. And I would really like for us to consider some investigation of the threat to our forest health, because, the planting of all the honeysuckle it started with a planting here and a planting here, and now it's infiltrated all of our forests. Mm-hmm. And fast forward, I don't think it's 100 years. I think it's about 30 years. We are going to be battling bamboo in a way that we will never win. We will never win against bamboo. And I have seen plantings happen along I-71 that were just a little planting, and now they are 100 feet wide and 100 feet deep. Hmm. And neighbors are complaining about plantings of other neighbors because it can't be contained. And I would really like for us to consider something so bold as proposing to City Council that we prohibit the planting of bamboo in the city.
Yeah, I'm sure we can add a few other species to that list as well.
Sure,
Yeah,
I imagine so.
right.
Yeah.
Well, the city has been the biggest the biggest culprit of pear trees, right?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Because I don't understand what's the matter with that pear tree. I think it's just lovely.
Oh, yeah, I think that's
They're
why
taking
people
over the
like
forests.
It's too many of itself.
So it duplicates itself? Is it a chain plant? What is it? I don't understand.
So it's the fruit is eaten by birds first, then keep them around the area, and then they have no other natural predators. So there's no fungus or diseases or anything that's targeting them because they're not native to this area. So in their home range, and this is kind of ubiquitous for most invasive species, where they come from, they have, genetically and geographically grown up in that area. So there are things that will keep them in check. But because they are transplanted here without that evolutionary history, they tend to take over. So the pear trees are just as bad as the honeysuckle or the porcelainberry or the bamboo. It's just that there's nothing here to keep it in check.
Gotcha.
And so in the spring, whenever the pears are blooming, if you drive around town, you will see full valleys that are white.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how they get you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like barrels, right?
Okay, well, thanks for the explanation. I agree with the bamboo.
Yeah.
It's a terrible.
It's a big problem.
Oh, it is a big problem.
We had an opportunity recently to walk through Monterey Forest with Councilmember Kramer Dane and just had this whole conversation on the importance of forest restoration for the good of not only the community to connect to nature, but also as a heat sink, a stormwater sink. And I feel like that this may be a good opportunity for us to reach out and maybe look to some of these policies that may be some kind of definitive stances as a city or how we should be operating with regards to forest management and these forest pests. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Exactly, and I think we've got a city administration that's very interested in this at the time, right now, so it may be a good opportunity to pursue that.
Absolutely.
I've got one piece of business. I forwarded to all of you the resume for Catherine Miller, and she is with Bartlett Wealth Management. Thrilled to have her join our Park Investment Committee. So I would just like to move that we appoint Catherine Miller to our Investment Committee. And second, all those in favor?
Aye.
I would like to have, and I mentioned to Jason, we might put an agenda item in November, very brief update by the investment committee, just so let them have an opportunity to come before you and see them. They do a lot of work on at least a quarterly basis for us, and very appreciative of the volunteer time that they do.
Would you mind naming the members of that?
Our members of the investment committee, I chair it. Then we have Kevin Flynn continues to be a member. John Nyer, who we all know, also continues to be a member. Steve Pullman, who is the CFO for the YMCA of Greater Cincinnati, is on it. We just a couple months ago approved, and I'm blanking, a gentleman from Western and Southern. We have not had a meeting since he joined us, but he'll be joining us. And then Catherine will join us, and Craig obviously is a member of that committee as well.
Thank you.
And beyond that, I just want to continue to echo our appreciation as a board. It is a new day in parks, and it is great to be able to come here and be a positive and see all the good things and focus on the positive things that we're doing. So thank you to all of you. Anything else for the good of our next meeting is same time, same place, November 17th.